Really quick video today. This is covering the revolts in the empire and how Xerxes handled revolts in the empire. As we should have gone over in class as well, or at least mentioned, the idea of handling revolts can actually fall under the kind of umbrella of administration as well, and arguably Xerxes as a military leader as well. So this kind of does branch and connect to a lot of the other topics. It's not a completely big dot point either. So the Egyptian revolt it's underway before Xerxes' dad passes away, which means when he does die, Xerxes kind of inherits this issue. From what we can see, it's that region is unhappy with some of the changes and some of the taxes that are being imposed on them. And it's possible that some of these, there were some changes in the taxation or tributes in order to prepare for this revenge of Athens that Darius wanted to take. Okay, there's some evidence that Xerxes led forces to suppress the result, so he's actually present. What the interesting part of this is, there is actually some debate on how Xerxes handled it. And historiographically, what the ancient sources, like your Herodotus and all that stuff, say is much different to more recent sources or more recently discovered sources. So, on one hand, apparently Xerxes was super strict on Egypt and he put them under tighter control than what he did before as a consequence of them rising up against him. On the other hand, he actually assists Egypt. He helps them economically. He allows them to continue things as they are. And some of the sources we'll look at in class, he actually donates to some of the temples. He helps with some of their, irrigation or water collection methods. So he actually helps them rather than, greatly hinders them. But we're going to look at these sources in class in order to kind of wade through some of these differences in the historiographic sources. In terms of the Babylonian Revolt, so this revolt delays Xerxes' prep for invading Greece. Okay, remember he probably would have liked to have invaded earlier, but he had to kind of get some of these concerns under wraps first before he could do so. So again, there's some different pieces of evidence that change the timing. So originally it was thought that these, because there were two Babylonian revolts, are separated by a couple of years. But there's two new pieces of evidence that indicate they may have occurred in Xerxes' second year. Xerxes not present for this one to suppress the revolt. Okay. And as I said, again, it's potentially about, Persia trying to change their administrative or bureaucratic systems. And bureaucratic just means, relating to government, or political kind of ideas. How did Xerxes handle these? Once again, we have some discrepancy between the sources. It's really, really interesting. So on one hand, he's charged with being quite brutal to these revolts. He's quite brutal on their religion, and he apparently destroys a really important golden statue that is the patron of the town of, or the city of Babylon. He stops using, because the king of Persia often inherits the title King of Persia, King of Kings, King of all the land. Apparently he stops using the King of Babylon title within his kingly title. Okay, and one of the other charges against Xerxes is he apparently floods Babylon. He apparently diverts the river, or a river, to flow through the middle of the city. And obviously what we do know is he divided Babylon into smaller satrapies. On the other hand, it is very likely that some of these accusations are exaggerated or misinterpreted, or just didn't happen at all. There's just no evidence of things like diverting the river. There is evidence that he did actually include the title King of Babylon in his name for some time after this revolt. So they just don't seem to be accurate at all. In terms of the statue, It doesn't appear to be a main golden statue of the city. It's potentially a votive statue. So it's potentially much less of a, I guess, brutal or heinous kind of act than what the original accusation was. The the interesting thing is, which we will end up talking about, if he did do what he was accused to have done in terms of the golden statue and enforcing some of the religion on Babylon, this goes against kind of the religious policy, and this goes against some of the attitudes of his dad and granddad in how they treated some of the subjugated states. So that's quite interesting. But once again, historiographically, our knowledge has changed on these revolts.